That was such an amazing episode of Sherlock! Now that was an episode of Sherlock. It was brilliant and fast-paced. There was nothing frivolous in that entire episode. Oh, that is what I've been waiting for. I could just go on and on about how amazing this episode and just different sounds. Ah! Ooh! Yes! Oh! Oh! Yeah! Oh! Yeah! That was good. I gotta just say that was really good. I'm happy that episode exists. That episode was season 3. That was it. I'm gonna just delete those first episodes from my mind because to me they didn't happen. His Last Vow should have been the premiere episode. Imagine that episode was what you came back to for 2 years hiatus, and that is what they just smack you in the face with. We just reset the clock anyway because instead of saying Sherlock was gone for 2 years, now he's been gone for a month. But it's pretty much the same thing. He was gone and now he's coming back. From the get-go, as soon as we get started, we get introduced to this new intense character. If this was the premiere episode, I'm going to talk a lot about the idea of this episode being the premiere episode. That would have been the most amazing introduction. Just look at this guy. He's just as smart as Sherlock, a lot more organized. He's sinister. That intrigue. The fact that he licked the woman's face, just gives you the heebie-jeebies, and you're just like, yeah, I want Sherlock to go up against this guy. So then we get introduced to John. Those first 5 minutes were enough to see everything that has happened to him in the last 2 years. So concise, and you didn't need the whole 600-hour wedding, stupid bachelor parties, all this other fluffy shit. Those 5 minutes, you learned John's married. You saw the rings on their fingers, their hands, together, in bed. 2, still having PTSD because Sherlock died. We have some flashbacks from the first 2 seasons. Shouldn't that have been in the first episode? We saw John showing more Sherlock-like attributes. Isn't it a little odd that we already had Sherlock come back, and this is the way John's still acting? This should have been the premiere episode! So then we see John rush off to satisfy his Sherlock lostness. So we're introduced to Mary in this way, and that little 2 seconds of, oh no, I'm pregnant, I shouldn't be going, and you shouldn't be going, and la la la, we're funny, and we have cute little relationship quarrels. John and Mary are great together. They have a really healthy relationship, and we could see it. This should have happened right off the get-go, right through the gates. I'm sorry. Okay, getting back on track. Now we have John and Mary driving up to this place to find this crack kid. John goes in there, and he beats up the guy, and he just says, I'm just used to a higher class of criminal. Oh! Funny! That's funny! You know what that is? Did you see it? Did you see it? That was Sherlock level comedy, and it just ran through the whole episode. And this is like the well-scripted type of funny that we are expecting from Sherlock. Not the type of crass, throwing up, slapstick comedy that we saw in the first 2 episodes. This is the type of comedy that I want to see from BBC Sherlock. So then John goes and finds a kid. Man, who is this voice in the corner? This guy in a disguise. Sherlock. Oh my god, he's alive! This is where we could have stuck in some stuff that from the first episode could have fit in perfectly. And there's going to be a lot of that as I ramble on. A lot of the things that were in the first 3 hours could have been really well placed in this episode, and it would have been a seamless transition into season 3. Right when Sherlock would make himself known to John, John can kick the crap out of him. And he kind of did. I don't really know why. I guess because he left for a month, but I mean, married, honeymoon, do your thing, right? So for him to be pissed off really, again, goes back to how I think this episode should have been the premiere. So now we have them going back to the car, get in the car. Mary could have been like, who is this guy? And you know, that would have made so much more sense than Mary just seeing this man over the 2 years of knowing your fiance has caused him to have PTSD, has made him relive some horrible moments in his life, has really affected him negatively. In that first episode, she turns around and said, I like him. What? Sherlock to be introduced to Mary by just getting into the car and John saying, we gotta take this dude to the hospital. It works! This works! So anyway, we're all in the car, and we all go to St. Bart's, and Sherlock does his drug test. And what I love about druggy Sherlock versus drunk Sherlock, druggy Sherlock, no matter how much drugs he took, was still in control. Sticking in character. I'm sorry, drunk Sherlock didn't make any sense to me. He was being spiked, and yes, beer plus vodka or rum is a bad mix, and anybody can get drunk. Blah, blah, blah. That type of control that Sherlock has over himself, he would know that as you're drinking, I'm gonna stop. So it didn't make any sense to me that Sherlock would get himself shit-faced drunk and just vomit everywhere. Ew! I enjoyed this introduction to Sherlock. Sherlock be reintroduced to us in a case? Yeah! Back in the apartment, Mrs. Hudson reintroducing John. Again, very odd in the context of what we have seen from the first episode. That now we see Sherlock acting this way towards John. I mean, yes, okay, he's married, they went to the wedding, Sherlock left the wedding early, and that episode, drama, drama, drama. But wouldn't it still make sense that if Sherlock came back knowing that John was married, he would still be acting this way? All these things still fit in the context of the episode. And here's my thing about Anderson. So we've already been introduced to Anderson from the minisode, which was amazing, this brilliant little minisode. Now that we're being reintroduced again, it's almost like Sherlock had never actually seen him before. But we've already seen them be reunited in the first episode, kind of. That whole scene was kind of strange. So when Sherlock walks into his flat and he sees Anderson there, and Anderson just assumes that he remembers him, can I just make a suggestion? Sherlock just turns around and says, "Who the hell are you?" That would have been so funny because of just how much Anderson has put into the last 2 years of finding Sherlock, and now he has this beard. You missed an opportunity there, but that's okay. Oh, Sherlock moved John's chair. Huh, that's a little thing. That's a little thing. You know, that's a really interesting thing. That is a type of immaturity you would see from this type of character. He's not actually a child. First 2 episodes, the fact that they would not only have Sherlock self-deprecating, being stupid, and acting drunk, they were trying to have Sherlock say that John and Mary take care of him like their child? What? Why? He's perfectly capable of taking care of himself, so the fact that he would equate himself to a child because these two are getting married, when did John ever become his father figure? Inconsequential of 3 hours. This made a lot more sense to me, that this is the way that Sherlock would retaliate to what's happening. And then we see Janine. This scene just gave me a heart attack. I was watching and I was like, what? And then he started acting all lovey-dovey and kissy and what? Then they explain to you why. Yes, he's just acting. This is an act. This is character development. Just look at this Sherlock, this new Sherlock. He not only knows how to handle women, he knows how to manipulate women. This is the type of character development that we could see over the last 2 years of Sherlock's mind working, his mind developing, learning new skills, understanding the human psyche. Ooh. And the fact that John doesn't know much about Sherlock right now, he's been gone for a while, then to see that he has this woman in his apartment, Sherlock being like, the world is gonna get exploded, and John being like, so, who's this chick you been banging? John reacted perfectly. That was a perfect reaction. That was a perfect John reaction. Even then, John was still on the fence being like, I don't understand what he's doing back here. I don't understand how he's playing me like this and how he could do these things to me. That's good. I want to see my John a little bit more tentative. Can we think about this logically? And we're thinking about this in terms of John now, you know. This is in terms of the only character in the show who actually reacts like a human being. Your best friend pretended to be dead, and you have to deal with what happened for 2 years, and then they're back? And they don't even act like they're remorseful about it. And that's what Sherlock is. He didn't die in his mind. In his mind, everything's fine, everything's justified. There was no part in the Reichenbach fall and subsequent 2 years where he was out of control. There is a plan. That's what Sherlock is. He's a planny guy. So anyway, I really liked how these two were interacting in the beginning. Then we jump right back into Sherlock suggesting John meet in places and assuming he's going to be there and things like that. This made sense. And as much as people say that, oh, we need time for John to, you know, react to Sherlock coming back and no, this is probably how John would react to Sherlock coming back. He'd be pissed and not really understanding why he would do the things that he did. But also if Sherlock said, hey John, jump, he would ask how high. That's the relationship they have. It's not that they owe something to one another or that they own one another. It's not like John's on this pedestal and Sherlock's just happy to be in his presence, to be able to breathe his air. And it's not that John is looking at Sherlock, oh, he's the best thing that ever happened to me. Oh my God, what can I do without him? No. We don't have to have John and Sherlock say they love each other in every conceivable combination of words known to man. Can we just appreciate this is the relationship that they have, and that when Sherlock shows these things to John, he would actually just be interested because that's who he is? They developed this throughout the episode. So I mean, yes, John would have his reservations about what Sherlock had done to him, but he would also want to be part of anything that Sherlock is going to show him. So now let me just comment on Janine for just 2 seconds. I know people are going to say, we needed the first 2 episodes so that they could introduce Janine to Sherlock at the wedding. They really didn't need to do that, because as we can see, Janine happens to work for Magnuson. But it just didn't really make any sense in the context of the wedding, and here's why. Mary didn't need to use Janine to get into the office. Mary was perfectly capable of getting in there on her own. It was Sherlock who needed Janine, and he used her perfectly. But the thing is, he didn't need to meet her at the wedding for this to happen. Sherlock could have just met Janine because he needed her to get into Magnuson's office. That makes sense. He could have met her at a coffee shop. I mean, look at this man. I mean, what reason do you really need to go out with him? Just look at him. Hot damn. So Sherlock is now in the office. Go up there. Janine's got her head bashed in. What the fuck happened? And then we have these little tidbits of information. Sherlock's smelling the perfume that we made very important in the first 5 minutes of the episode. Sherlock is smelling this perfume, having no expectation or relation to John at this point in this case. And you know, Sherlock with his perfumes, you know, this is all going back to the first 2 seasons, and there were a lot of stuff that was really great connections to the first 2 seasons in this episode. And then John just happens to mention Mary has that perfume, and of course Sherlock just dismisses it. Mary at this point to Sherlock is important to Sherlock because she is important to John. We didn't really need them to plan a wedding together. This was enough. This is how we show how important John is to Sherlock. That's what we want. Sherlock goes in, sees that it's Mary, and Mary holding the gun. Doesn't think she's gonna shoot him. Approaches her, and BAM! That was so good. I was just like, oh, she actually did it. So now, the best scene. Oh, the scene. So good. I just want to watch it forever scene. This Mind Palace scene. This is a Mind Palace scene. Perfect for reintroducing us to characters that we were attached to in the first 2 seasons. This is how we can bring these characters into the premiere episode through Sherlock. Oh, that makes so much sense. The whole process of his mind and how he has to convince himself and fight for his life. Yeah, that was good. So now we have this incredible scene of Molly as Sherlock telling him what to do. And then we see this beautiful directory of weapons, of 1,000,000 guns that he just happens to know all of the schematics for. Are you telling me this man who has this information doesn't know how to deactivate a bomb? This is the Sherlock we want to see. We want to see the Sherlock with all his information rolling around his head and him delving into them and finding exactly what he needs in each situation. Oh, yeah! So now we're descending. And, okay, this is where I have a few suggestions. Again, they're not criticisms, they're suggestions. Earlier in the episode, we did hear Magnuson, as he was in the room with Sherlock, discussing his pressure points. But then this thing with the dog. Redbeard, and it seemed to have this emotional reaction from Sherlock. He just seemed to be taken off guard, being like, what the fuck? It seemed like something that was made to be noticed. Should have been a little bit more useful in the episode. It was kind of useful because it was the thing that made Sherlock not go into shock. And okay, that kind of makes sense. What if instead of the dog, because we are going on this pathway of reintroducing characters and really showing how people fit into Sherlock's Mind Palace. How about, instead of the dog, what was there to help comfort Sherlock and to not let him get into shock was Irene Adler. And let you absorb that for a second. I just think that Irene would have made a lot of sense in this context. I mean, yes, in The Scandal of Belgravia, she was the antagonist, but we did see by the end of the episode that she just developed this relationship with Sherlock where he not only mutually respected her, but really placed her in this high regard in his mind, in his heart. So for her to have been there to calm him down, for me, would have made a lot of sense and would have not broken that line of characters. You know, the same way they introduced this memory of his dog, they could have introduced this memory that he shared with Irene that no one else knows about. Ooh. And it would have reintroduced Irene in a much better way than now they cameoed her in the second episode. Just a suggestion. And now we get to so good Moriarty.